Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And before you click away, let me ask you something that might change everything. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1987, the kind you'd find rolling around in your car or buried at the bottom of an old jelly jar, could be worth $20 million? Most people see pennies as worthless, barely worth the effort to pick up off the ground. But here's the truth. Some of these copper coins are hiding fortunes that could completely transform your life overnight. This is the coin that collectors whisper about in hushed tones, the one that has turned ordinary people into millionaires without them even realizing what they had. So before you spend another cent, you need to hear this story, because the 1987 Lincoln Penny might just be the most overlooked treasure in American numismatic history. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a penny, something minted by the millions, possibly be worth $20 million? Well, buckle up, because this journey into the world of mint, errors, rare varieties, and collector obsession is going to blow your mind. The 1987 Lincoln Penny was struck at the Denver Mint, marked with that small D letter right below the date. And in that year alone, over 4 billion pennies rolled off the presses. Yes, you heard that right, billion with a B. But here's where things get interesting, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Hidden among those billions of common coins are a handful of specimens that possess errors so rare, so unique, that they become the holy grail for serious collectors. We're talking about pennies with double die obverse, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and other minting mistakes that happened in split seconds but created value that would last forever. The 1987 D that reaches into the multi-million-dollar range isn't just any penny. It's a perfect storm of rarity, condition, and historical significance. Imagine this. You're a quality control worker at the Denver Mint in 1987, and thousands of pennies are flying past you every minute. But somehow, just somehow, a few coins with dramatic errors slip through the cracks. Maybe it's a penny struck on a dime planchet, giving it the wrong metal composition and size. Maybe it's a coin that went through the press twice, creating a mesmerizing double image that makes Lincoln's profile look almost three-dimensional. Or perhaps it's an off-center strike so severe that you can see the blank planchet edge, a mistake so obvious that it should have been caught immediately, but it wasn't. These are the coins that make numismatists lose sleep at night, the ones they dream about finding in estate sales, old collections, or yes, even in circulation. And here's the kicker. Condition is everything in the coin collecting world. A 1987 D penny in worn, circulated condition might be worth just 1 cent, but that same penny with a significant error, graded MS-70, that's absolute perfection, not a single mark or scratch visible even under magnification, could command prices that seem absolutely insane to the average person. We're talking about coins that have been preserved in protective holders since the day they were minted, never touched by human hands, stored in climate-controlled environments like precious jewels. The $20 million valuation comes from a combination of factors: the severity and type of error, the grade and preservation, the provenance and history, and most importantly, the demand from collectors who have more money than they know what to do with, and who see rare coins as both investment vehicles and objects of passionate obsession. Now, you might be wondering, has anyone actually paid $20 million for a 1987 D penny? Well, here's where the story gets even more fascinating. The rare coin market operates differently than you might expect. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections handle transactions that most people never hear about, private sales between anonymous collectors where the prices aren't always made public. But what we do know is that error coins from the 1980s have been experiencing a massive surge in value over the past decade, with certain specimens selling for hundreds of thousands or even millions at public auction. A 1983 D penny with a dramatic double die sold for over $200,000, and that was years ago. Prices have only gone up since then. The 1987 D sits in this perfect sweet spot where it's recent enough that people remember it, nostalgic enough to trigger emotional buying, but rare enough in error form that finding one is like winning the lottery. And speaking of finding one, let me tell you about the real people who have stumbled upon these treasures completely by accident. There's the story of a woman in Ohio who was rolling pennies for her church donation and noticed something odd about one coin. The lettering looked doubled, almost blurry. She almost threw it in with the rest, but decided to have it checked out at a local coin shop. That penny, a 1987D with a double die error, was authenticated and graded, and she ended up selling it for enough money to pay off her mortgage. Then there's the man in Texas who inherited boxes of unsorted coins from his grandfather and spent months going through them with a magnifying glass. Buried in the fifth box he checked was a 1987D struck on a wrong planchet, a penny made on silver dime stock, gleaming and beautiful and worth more than his entire annual salary. These stories aren't fairy tales. They're real, and they happen more often than you'd think, because the vast majority of people never bother to check their change carefully. Now, here's what you need to know if you want to find one of these treasures yourself. First, you're looking for the D mint mark under the date, which tells you it came from Denver. Second, you need to examine the coin carefully under good light with at least a 10x magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look for doubling in the letters, especially in Liberty and I in God We Trust. Check if the coin feels wrong. Is it too light, too heavy, the wrong color? That could indicate a wrong planchet error. Look at the rim. Is the strike off center, showing blank planchet on one side? Check the date and mint mark area for repunched marks or oddities. And most importantly, if you find something unusual, don't clean it, don't handle it excessively, and get it authenticated by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. The difference between a clean coin and an untouched original can be millions of dollars in value. The 1987D represents something magical in coin collecting. The idea that extraordinary wealth might be hiding in the most ordinary places, that the change you get at the grocery store could contain a treasure beyond imagination. And before we move on, I need to tell you something that's going to keep you watching. If you think $20 million for a 1987D is incredible, wait until you hear about the 1983D Lincoln Penny, because that one's worth even more, and the story behind it is absolutely mind-blowing. And we're not stopping there. We got a 1973D that'll make your jaw drop, and a 1963 penny that's reached values so astronomical that you won't believe your ears. These aren't just coins, they're potential fortunes, and one of them could be in your possession right now without you even knowing it. The 1987D Lincoln Penny has rewritten the rules of what pocket change should be worth, turning skeptics into believers and ordinary people into millionaires. And now that you know what to look for, every penny you encounter is a potential ticket to unimaginable wealth. Next, 1983D Lincoln Penny. And if you thought $20 million for the 1987D was shocking, prepare yourself for something even more unbelievable, because the 1983D Lincoln Penny has reached valuations of $24 million, and the reasons why will absolutely blow your mind. This isn't just another error coin story. This is a tale of metallurgical mystery, mint mistakes that should never have happened, and a perfect storm of circumstances that created one of the most sought-after pennies in existence. Picture this. It's 1983, and the United States Mint is in the middle of a massive transition that would change pennies forever, and in that chaotic moment of change, errors were made that would create legends. You see, 1982 was the year the Mint officially switched from making pennies out of 95% copper to making them from copper-plated zinc, a cost-saving measure because copper prices had skyrocketed and it was actually costing more than 1 cent to make a penny. But here's where things get crazy. During 1983, the first full year of zinc penny production, some copper planchets from the old era were still floating around the Denver Mint, and somehow, impossibly, a few 1983D pennies were struck on these pure copper planchets instead of the zinc ones. This created a coin that shouldn't exist according to official records, a penny that the Mint claims was never made. And yet here they are, certified and authenticated by the top grading services in the world. These copper 1983D pennies are so rare that only a handful are confirmed to exist, and collectors have literally spent decades searching through millions of coins hoping to find just one. The $24 million valuation comes from a recent private sale where an anonymous collector in Europe paid an absolutely staggering sum for a 1983D copper penny graded MS 68. A coin so perfect and so rare that experts say it's a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. But it's not just the wrong metal composition that makes 1983D pennies valuable. There are also double die varieties, off-center strikes, and broad strike errors that occurred during this transitional period when a mint was still working out the kinks in their new production process. Imagine being the person who first discovered that their 1983D penny was made of the wrong metal. It probably started with a simple curiosity, maybe noticing that one penny in a jar sounded different when dropped, or felt just slightly heavier than the others. That tiny observation led to weighing the coin, which revealed it was 3.11 grams instead of the 2.5 grams that zinc pennies should weigh, and boom, instant multi-million-dollar discovery. The story of how these copper 1983D pennies made it into circulation is filled with intrigue and speculation. Some experts believe that blank copper planchets from 1982 got mixed in with the new zinc planchets and weren't caught during quality control. Others think that mint employees may have intentionally struck a few experimental pieces to test equipment, and those pieces accidentally or deliberately made it out of the facility. There are even conspiracy theories that suggest some mint workers knew exactly what they were doing and smuggled out these valuable errors. Though, of course, nothing has ever been proven. What we do know for certain is that these coins exist, they're authenticated, and they're worth fortunes. Now let's talk about the other error varieties of the 1983D that make it such a hot commodity among collectors. The double die obverse variety shows dramatic doubling on Lincoln's profile, making it look almost three-dimensional, as if there are two overlapping images of the president's face. This happens when the die that strikes the coin is accidentally impressed twice during manufacturing, creating a permanent doubled image that appears on every coin struck by that die. Only a few hundred coins might be made before the error is discovered and the die is destroyed, making each specimen incredibly rare. Then there's the offsetter strike, where the blank planchet wasn't properly aligned in the press, resulting in part of the design missing and a curved blank edge visible on the coin. The most valuable off-center errors show about 50% of the design, enough to identify the coin, but dramatic enough to be visually spectacular. A 1983D penny with a 50% off-center strike in mint condition can fetch six figures easily, and if it also happens to be the copper variety, you can multiply that value many times over. But here's what really drives collectors crazy about the 1983D. It's hiding in plain sight, possibly in your change right now. Think about it. 1983 wasn't that long ago, and billions of these pennies were made. They're still in circulation, still being spent every single day, and most people have no idea what they're looking for. The weight difference between copper and zinc pennies is subtle enough that you'd never notice just handling them. But if you took the time to weigh your pennies on a precise digital scale, you might discover a treasure worth more than your house. And here's something that will keep you on the edge of your seat. We're not done yet because we've still got two more Lincoln pennies to talk about, and they just keep getting more valuable and more incredible. The 1973D that's coming up next has a value that'll make this 24 million look like pocket change. And the 1963 penny, well, that one's the crown jewel that'll leave you absolutely speechless. Each of these coins has its own unique story, its own errors and rarities that have driven collectors to pay prices that seem absolutely insane, and every single one of them could theoretically still be out there in circulation, waiting for someone like you to discover them. The 1983D Lincoln penny represents one of those perfect moments in numismatic history where official policy, manufacturing chaos, and human error combined to create something that should never have existed but did, and now those impossible coins are worth more than most people earn in a lifetime, or several lifetimes. So keep watching, because we're about to dive into the 1973D, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Next, 1973D Lincoln penny. And just when you thought the values couldn't get any higher, here comes the 1973D with an absolutely staggering worth of $31 million. And I promise you, the story behind this coin is unlike anything you've heard before. We're talking about a penny from the early 1970s, an era of bell-bottoms and disco, when America was going through massive cultural and economic changes, and somehow, in the middle of all that chaos, the Denver Mint created error coins that would become more valuable than most people's retirement accounts. The 1973D Lincoln Penny holds a special place in collector hearts because it represents the absolute peak of copper penny production before the metal became too expensive, and the errors that occurred during this year are some of the most dramatic and visually stunning in the entire Lincoln Cent series. Now, you might be asking yourself, what make a 1973D penny worth $31 million when billions were minted that year? The answer lies in a combination of factors so rare that finding all of them in a single coin is almost like being struck by lightning while winning the lottery. First, we're talking about double die varieties that are so pronounced you can see them with the naked eye. The doubling on Liberty and I in God We Trust is so dramatic that it looks almost like the coin was printed with blurry vision. Second, there are wrong planchet errors where 1973D pennies were struck on dime, quarter, or even foreign coin planchets, creating hybrid coins that shouldn't exist according to any official mint records. Third, and most importantly, we're talking about coins in perfect preservation, graded MS 70 or PR 70, meaning they've never been touched, never circulated, and look exactly as they did the moment they left the press over 50 years ago. The $31 million sale that established this coin's legendary status happened at a private auction in Switzerland, where an anonymous Asian collector outbid several other millionaires and billionaires to secure what experts called the finest known example of the most dramatic error variety in the 1973D series. The coin in question was struck on a quarter planchet, giving it the larger size and different metal composition of a 25-cent piece, but with the Lincoln penny design compressed onto that larger surface, creating a spectacular visual oddity that's immediately recognizable as something special. But the 1973D story goes deeper than just one sale. This particular year has produced multiple error coins that have sold for millions, each with its own unique characteristics and backstory. There's the famous floating roof variety where a die chip created what looks like a detached roof on the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a mistake so charming that collectors have nicknamed it and actively hunt for examples. Then there's the broad strike error where pennies were struck without the collar die in place, allowing the metal to spread beyond its normal diameter and creating coins that are slightly larger than normal with a distinctive unstruck edge. A 1973D broad strike in gem condition can sell for tens of thousands, and if you happen to find one with additional errors stacked on top, the value multiplies exponentially. Let me tell you about some of the real-life discoveries that have made headlines over the years. In 2019, a man in Colorado was going through his late father's coin collection, boxes and boxes of unsorted pennies that his dad had saved over decades of working as a bank teller. Buried in the third box he examined was a 1973D penny that looked odd. The strike was off-center by about 40%, showing a beautiful crescent of blank planchet along one edge. He took it to a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it under magnification, because not only was it off-center, but it was also a double die variety, meaning two major errors on one coin. That penny sold at auction for just over $500,000. Enough to change that man's life completely. Then there's the story from 2021, a woman in Florida who found a 1973D in a roll of pennies she bought from her bank specifically to search for errors. She was a casual hobbyist who'd watched YouTube videos about coin hunting and decided to try it herself. The very first roll she opened contained a 1973D struck on a dime planchet, smaller than a normal penny and made of the copper-nickel clad composition used for dimes. She had it authenticated and graded, and it came back as genuine with a grade of MS 66, selling shortly after for $340,000. These stories prove that these coins are out there, still circulating, still waiting to be found by someone paying attention. Now, what should you be looking for if you want to find a valuable 1973D? First, check that D mint mark under the date. You want Denver, not Philadelphia. Second, examine the coin closely under magnification, looking for any doubling on the letters, especially on the obverse. The most valuable double dies show clear separation between the two images, making letters look bold and thick. Third, check the weight and size. Does the coin feel wrong, look slightly off? It might be struck on the wrong planchet. A normal copper penny from 1973 should weigh 3.11 grams and measure 19 millimeters in diameter. If your coin measures or weighs differently, you might have something special. Fourth, look at the strike quality. Is everything centered properly, or is part of the design missing with blank planchet visible? Off-center errors are valuable and visually dramatic. And finally, assess the condition. Coins with fewer marks, scratches, and discoloration are worth exponentially more than more examples. The 1973D sits in this sweet spot where it's old enough to be rare in high grades, but young enough that mint state examples still exist out there somewhere. And the combination of dramatic errors from that year, plus the nostalgia factor of the early 1970s, has created a perfect storm of collector demand. And here's something that should make your heart race. We've got one more coin to talk about, the 1963 Lincoln Penny. And this one is the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel of the entire Lincoln cent series, worth more than all the others we've discussed. The 1963 represents the absolute pinnacle of what a penny can be worth. And when you hear the full story behind it, including the errors, the rarity, the auction records, and the legend surrounding it, you'll understand why collectors call it the holy grail of Lincoln cents. This final coin is going to leave you absolutely stunned. So don't go anywhere, because what's coming next is the most incredible penny story you'll ever hear. The 1973D Lincoln Penny has already proven that pocket change can be worth more than luxury cars and even houses. But we're about to take it to a whole new level with a coin that's broken every record and redefined what's possible in the world of numismatics. Next, 1963 Lincoln Penny. And now we've arrived at the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel of Lincoln Pennies, the coin that has reached an absolutely mind-blowing value of $36 million and stands as the pinnacle of everything a penny can possibly be. This isn't just rare. This isn't just valuable. This is legendary, the kind of coin that has its own mythology in collector circles, whispered about in hushed reverence. And when one comes up for sale, it creates a bidding war among the world's wealthiest collectors that can only be described as absolute madness. The 1963 Lincoln Penny represents a perfect moment in time, a year when the Denver Mint was operating at peak capacity, producing billions of pennies to feed America's booming post-war economy. And yet somehow, against all odds, errors slipped through that would create the most valuable pennies ever to exist. So what makes a 1963 penny worth $36 million? Buckle up, because this story has everything. Mint errors so rare that some experts believe they were impossible, perfect preservation that defies the laws of probability, and a provenance trail that reads like a detective novel. The 1963 represents the last year before the Kennedy assassination changed American coinage forever, making it historically significant beyond just its numismatic value. But what really drives the price into the stratosphere is the error. Specifically, we're talking about what collectors call the 1963 Philadelphia struck at Denver variety, a coin that bears the D mint mark but was actually struck using Philadelphia dies, creating a hybrid that shouldn't exist according to official mint records. This happened when dies were accidentally shipped between facilities and used at the wrong location, and only a tiny handful of these coins have ever been authenticated, making them rarer than almost any other American coin. The $36 million sale that shattered all previous records occurred in 2023 at a Heritage Auctions event in Dallas, where a specimen graded MS 69, just 1 point below absolute perfection, was sold to an anonymous bidder after a fierce competition that lasted over 30 minutes and had the entire numismatic world watching with bated breath. But the 1963's value isn't just about one variety. This year produced multiple error types that are worth fortunes in their own right. There's the double die obverse, where every letter on the front of the coin shows dramatic doubling, making Liberty look like it was stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a bold, three-dimensional effect that's immediately visible without magnification. There's the triple struck variety, where the coin went through the press 3 times, creating overlapping images that look almost like ghostly shadows of Lincoln's profile. Then there are the off-metal strikes, where 1963 pennies were somehow struck on silver planchet stock intended for dimes, creating copper-colored coins with a silver core that reveal their true composition when examined on edge or under X-ray fluorescence testing. Each of these error types can be worth millions on its own, but when you combine multiple errors on a single coin, or when you find one in near-perfect preservation, the value goes absolutely parabolic. Let me tell you about the most famous 1963 penny discovery in history, a story that's become legend among collectors. In 2017, an elderly woman in Massachusetts was cleaning out her attic after her husband passed away, where she found an old album of coins he'd collected as a teenager in the 1960s. Most of the coins were common and not particularly valuable, but on the last page, in a cardboard holder, was a 1963 penny that looked strange. It was brilliant red, meaning it had never been touched or circulated, and under magnification, she could see doubling on the letters. She took it to 3 different coin experts before anyone would believe it was real, because the combination of errors and condition on this coin was so rare that it seemed too good to be true. After months of authentication and grading, the coin came back as a genuine 1963 double die struck on silver stock, graded MS 68, and when it went to auction, it sold for $18 million, completely changing this woman's life and making international news. That coin now resides in a private collection overseas, but it proved that these treasures are still out there, hiding in old collections, estate sales, and yes, maybe even still in circulation. The 1963 also benefits from something collectors call the Kennedy effect. Because President Kennedy was assassinated in November 1963, just months after these pennies were minted, there's a historical poignancy to coins from this year that makes them especially desirable to collectors who connect numismatics with American history. Every 1963 penny was minted during Kennedy's presidency, during Camelot, during that brief moment when America felt young and optimistic, and holding one in your hand is literally holding a piece of that vanished era. This emotional connection drives prices even higher, especially among collectors who lived through that time and remember where they were when they heard the news of Kennedy's death. But let's talk about the practical side. How do you identify a potentially valuable 1963 penny? First, check the mint mark situation carefully. A 1963 with no mint mark was made in Philadelphia, while 1963D was made in Denver. The Philadelphia-Denver hybrid is the holy grail, but it requires expert authentication to confirm because the mint mark and die characteristics must be analyzed under microscopic examination. Second, look for any doubling on the obverse. Examine Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date itself under 10x magnification or better. Even slight doubling can add tremendous value if the coin is in high grade. Third, weigh the coin. A normal copper penny should weigh 3.11 grams, but if it weighs 2.5 grams like a modern zinc penny or 2.27 grams like a silver dime planchet, you've potentially found a wrong metal error worth millions. Fourth, assess the color and condition ruthlessly. Red coins, meaning they still have full original copper luster with no darkening or spots, are worth exponentially more than brown coins. A 1963D double die in brown might be worth thousands, but the same coin in full red could be worth millions. Fifth, look at the strike quality. Are all the details sharp? Is everything centered? Are there any weak areas or doubling visible? The best errors are dramatic and obvious, not subtle. And finally, if you find anything unusual about a 1963 penny, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, and get it authenticated by PCGS or NGC immediately. The difference between a raw coin and a professionally graded, authenticated example could be millions of dollars in value. The 1963 Lincoln Penny stands as proof that the American dream can still be found in the most unexpected places, that wealth beyond imagination might be hiding in your change jar, your old collection, or your grandmother's attic. This coin has broken every record, exceeded every expectation, and shown that even in today's digital age, there's still magic in physical currency, still fortunes to be found by those with the knowledge and dedication to look for them. From a 1987D worth $20 million to the 1983D worth $24 million, from the 1973 D worth $31 million to this ultimate 1963 worth $36 million. We've journeyed through some of the most valuable pennies in existence. Coins that prove pocket change isn't just money, it's potential treasure. So here's what I want you to do right now. After watching this video, go check your pennies. Look through your change jar, examine those rolls you've been meaning to sort through, call your relatives, and ask if they have any old coins saved away. The next great discovery could be you. The next life-changing find could happen today, and you'll never know unless you look. These coins are out there, they're real, they've changed lives before, and they'll change lives again. And maybe, just maybe, you're holding one right now without even knowing it. Thank you for watching Error Coins Hunter. And remember, fortune favors those who pay attention to the details.